All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. Today we're going to be talking about a specific subject that I absolutely love to do during the spring. We're going to be talking about swim baits, but now we're also going to be talking about the areas and why this bait is so productive in those particular areas during the spring. So either way, stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. So first, let's talk about the areas, because that's where all the puzzle pieces are kind of going to come together. The areas that I'm really looking for during the spring is those ditches. So what I mean by ditches is those areas that push back up in these channel swings, those pockets, those areas in your channel swings that has water coming in. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a stream of water, so you don't necessarily have to see like water actually coming in, but actually seeing those areas where it ditches off right in the middle. So those areas where it's steep bank and then it goes deep right in the middle, and then maybe it comes up on a shallow bar. Typically what I like to do with my swim baits is throw those baits up on the bar, and I'll let the bait hit the bottom, and once it does, I'll slowly bring it down the edge of that drop off, whether it's whether it's a steep descent, or whether it's just kind of like a slow taper. But either way, I'm slowly bringing that swim bait off. And a lot of times this time of year during the spring, when we get a lot of those spring rains, your water muddies up and stuff like that, that fresh water coming in, a lot of shad like migrating to those areas, and a lot of bass like migrating to those areas 2 feet up to get ready for the spawn. So there's 2 swim baits and 2 setups that I'm going to show you that I really like to use this time of year, and the colors are kind of going to vary depending on the watercolor. So one of the first ones is one of my all-time favorites. It's a 3.75 inch swim bait, but this is the Rage Swimmer. I'm very keen to the Rage Swimmer. You know, you may like the Mayors or something in the bigger profile, like the 4 inch, the 3 3/4 inch, whatever the case may be, but you know, the 3.5 or bigger swim bait is typically going to be my go-to. Now this time of year, a lot of times, especially, I'm throwing this bait up on those bars and I'm bringing it off into that deeper water, so I don't really want to go with that heavy of a head, because I'm still not just cranking the swim bait super fast. I'm kind of slow tapering it off, so going with a 1/4 ounce head is definitely going to be my go-to. One of my main things is with swim bait rods is the action and the length. These 2 are going to be very important, because you still want that whip, right? So I want that whip to where, like, if I'm sitting far out of the pocket that I'm trying to throw up in, I want to be able to whip that swim bait and get that swim bait, you know, really far away from the boat. So having a longer rod, I typically like to go with a 7'3". It's kind of like that soft medium, like for the jig. Like it's one of those where I've got a lot of leverage if I get that hook set far out, but I've also got that whip where I can get that bait far out, but I still have control of the bait at all times. So I highly suggest like a 7'3" medium heavy. You may like a 7'6". Maybe you're fishing like, you know, something like a Lewis Smith Lake, or maybe a Lake Lanier or something like that, some type of highland reservoir, super clean water. 7'6", whatever you prefer, but the setup's all pretty much similar. Now the reel, I'm going with a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. I like those higher speeds because a lot of times this time of year these fish will hit these baits from behind and they will push that bait towards the boat, so I need to be able to catch up with them. Also, bombing long casts, sometimes the wind will blow your line and throw a bow in your line. You need to get that slack line in really quickly so you're not having issues as far as like trying to catch up to that bait, worry about getting hung up or any of those scenarios. So having a higher speed gear ratio is definitely going to be my go-to. 15-pound fluorocarbon. Really like fluorocarbon this time of year. In the cooler months, I really like mono because it's got that stretch. I get those short strikes or something like that. A lot of times those fish, it gives them time to get a hold of that bait. But you know, any type of 4 inch to 3.5 inch swim bait is going to be great for mimicking fish, whether you're fishing on a threadfin shad fishery or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of fish moving up shallow, so the 3.75 up to a 4 inch can, you know, determine a lot of different things being up shallow depending on what color swim bait you choose. But the color is really going to be determined on the watercolor. So when we're dealing with muddy water, I want to go with something like that white. I want something to stand out, or I may want to go with something darker, especially if I'm dealing with muddy water or low light conditions. So, you know, low light conditions and muddy water conditions are very similar. So keep something super simple like your whites, and then some type of darker color, whether that's black and blue or something like that. Those will kind of keep you covered as far as like shad and bluegill. Now, if I'm dealing with clean water, that's typically when I want to use something like those green pumpkins, or, you know, something very, very natural, watermelon seed, anything like that, something that represents natural color. You know, if I'm throwing green pumpkin and I'm catching fish off of it, maybe I go through all of them in a day, but I've got watermelon seed. Typically you can swap to those watermelon seeds and you're still going to catch those fish. Now, the next one that I want to talk about, this is just one of those, I call it like a fish catching machine bait, because you're just going to catch a ton of fish. You're going to catch some big ones, you're going to catch some small ones, you're going to catch everything in between. You may even catch a crappie or a little brim or something. You can't ever tell with these. They're really, really fun. If you're carrying somebody fishing this time of year, it's a great time to put this bait in their hands and help them build confidence while they're fishing. But that's going to be like a 3-inch swim bait. So something like the 2.75 inch or the 3-inch swim bait. I typically like to go with the 3-inch swim bait. I'm throwing the mayor on this, and the colors are all the same. So, you know, white, the black and blue, the green pumpkin, all that is the same. I treat it all the exact same. But I'm going with the Rapala mayor. I've become real fond of the Rapala mayors over the year, or over the past couple years, especially their 3-inch swim baits. But now, one thing that always bugged me about the mayors that I never really liked, I throw the squadron heads a lot. And I also throw the Smalley Smashers a lot. And I couldn't really figure out a swim bait head that kind of matched everything up on the Rapala and didn't make it kind of roll a little bit and just kind of act a little funky. Couldn't really skip it that good. There was a lot of different factors, but I also wanted that 1/4 ounce head also, which is what I'm throwing on this. But if you're looking for a good swim bait head and you use the mayors a lot and you want something to kind of button up to it real nice and give it that nice flow while you're using it, I really like the, these are the Eagle Claw, I believe so, Eagle Claw. Everything will be linked down in the description. I'll have it pop up on the screen, but it's like the Eagle Claw laser sharp heads, 1/4 ounce head. They're triangular. They just button up to the Rapala mayor very well. You can skip these really good. The only thing is the mayor is a softer plastic, so if you go to skip and stuff like around docks or something like that, then typically this bait's gonna slide down. So the cool thing is you can take a couple of these like the night before you go fishing, put a little bit of super glue on them, button them up to the head, and you should be good most of the day until they get tore up. But now we're doing kind of the similar thing. I'm using these on those deeper channel swings. I'm also using these most of the time in the ditches and stuff. I'm usually using this in cleaner water. Clean water, that's gonna be one of the key factors. Now, I don't mean like I can see, you know, 40 foot down. What I mean is 3 foot or more visibility. I'm typically gonna go with that mayor, especially fishing these threadfin shad fisheries. These fish are going to be so honed in on what they're eating right now, trying to get ready for the spawn, that it's hard for them to kind of, you know, move off something that looks completely different. Sometimes they will and sometimes they won't. Typically, in my experience, a lot of times on most lakes and most river systems, it's really hard to veer off of what they're typically eating, for whether it's that day, that month, or whatever the case may be. It depends on what's around the fish at the time. Now, as the rod, this is going to be that Thunderhawk Elite Series rod. It's a 6'11". It's a medium action rod. It's really perfect. It's a medium moderate, but it's really perfect for swim baits and stuff like that, in my opinion. I've become really fond of using this rod, particularly for the smaller finesse swim baits and underspins and stuff like that. But I'm going with a 10-pound braided line to a fluorocarbon leader. It's 8 pounds. Sometimes I'll go down to 6. Very rarely will I ever, unless I'm on something like a Highland Reservoir, super clear water. But most of the time, 8-pound test, that soft medium, I can kind of throw it just about anywhere. But guys, let me know down in the comments what you think about the 2 swim baits that I've talked about today. Do you have good luck with them? You never tried them? You're gonna give them a try? Let me know down below. Also, hit that thumbs up button. It helps out the channel a whole lot. Subscribe down below. We just hit over 12,000 subscribers. So all thanks to you guys, and I very appreciate it. Brad appreciates it too, all the hard work he puts in on the camera, behind the camera, all that good stuff. So either way, guys, I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.